Hi, I'm Chris Lee, and this is Virtually Speaking. Joining me today is Dr. Marshall Goldsmith, the author and editor of 41 books, which have sold over 2.5 million copies, been translated into 32 languages, and have become bestsellers in 12 countries. Marshall's books Triggers and What Got You Here Won't Get You There were both recognized by Amazon as being in the top 100 books ever written on leadership. He's the only two-time Thinkers 50 #1 leadership thinker in the world. He's been ranked as the world's #1 executive coach and also a top 10 business thinker for 8 years straight, and was chosen as the inaugural winner of the Lifetime Award for Leadership by the Harvard Institute of Coaching. He's one of only a select few executive advisors who's worked with over 200 major CEOs and their management teams. Harvard Business Review called him the world's #1 leadership thinker. BusinessWeek called him one of the 50 great leaders in America. American Management Association called him one of the 50 great thinkers and leaders who've influenced the field of management over the past 80 years. In our talk today, Marshall and I talk about leadership today and what leaders need to do to improve themselves, the cultures of their companies, and their subordinates' success. This conversation is a great look into what he writes about, teaches, and how he coaches the top executives in the world. So please join me now with Dr. Marshall Goldsmith. Well, hello, Marshall Goldsmith. Thank you for joining me here on Virtually Speaking. How the heck are you doing today?
Life is good. Life is good. I'm here in La Jolla. Life is good.
Well, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm so excited. You're a best-selling author that the whole world knows, and you've had multiple best-selling books. You've sold millions of copies of books. You've been #1 on many, many bestseller lists. And you've been ranked as a top leader and a top coach for many, many years and on many different lists. So it's pretty cool to have a guy like you that I really can bounce things off of and find out about how you got there and what you think about things. And I know that right now you must be getting a lot of people asking you about not only your latest books, but also, the world we live in right now, leading in a time of crisis.
Right.
Must be a topic that, I'm sure you're speaking a lot about and that you have a lot of opinions on when it comes to individuals, how do we lead, and also just leaders of companies and leaders of organizations, how do we lead? So tell me a little bit about that.
Well, I talk about it from the perspective of the individual. Because right now we're in crazy land. There's so much stimulus, so much things going on. It's very hard for people to keep in focus.
Yeah.
And I work a lot in India, and there's something called the Bhagavad Gita that gives you a good way to look at this. It says in the Bhagavad Gita, the world's most famous poem, there are two characters. And one character is got two choices, bad and worse, and the other is Krishna, and he's giving him advice. And he goes on and on about how bad it is. I have two choices, bad and worse. He's given a very good message. A few key learning points. One is accept what is. One of the things right now that's very important is I call pragmatic optimism. You can be optimistic, but you have to be realistic. Motivational speeches today are not going to do it, or pep talks or whatever. People want someone to be authentic and face the reality. It's tough out there, and face the reality of how hard it is. Another part of the book that's very good is, #1, you accept what is. #2, you have a clear strategy. You have a clear strategy, you accept what is, you do your best, and you don't get fixated on the outcomes. You focus on what I can control, not what I cannot control.
Right.
And one of the guys I work with is a man named Harry Kramer. He's got a good saying. He was asked, how can you live with yourself? You got to lay people off, you've got to fire people. How do you live with yourself? He said, I ask myself two questions. Am I doing what I think is right? Am I doing my best? If the answer is yes and yes, make peace. Just make peace. And I'll tell you a story, the parable and the golfer. So the golfer is playing for the club championship. Hits the drive. On the last hole, finally has a chance to win his little club championship. The ball goes perfectly to the left. People in front of him are rude, loud, noisy, drinking. He's really annoyed, but he keeps it together. All of a sudden, bing, the ball hits something and goes into the rough. He's going, what's that? He walks toward the ball, he sees a beer can. The idiots in front of him have left a beer can. He is completely angry. What does a golfer need to do? You stop and you breathe. You stop, you breathe. You forget about the beer can. You forget about the shot. You forget about winning the tournament. You come up with a strategy. If you're one shot behind, you go for the green. Who cares? If you're 3 shots ahead, you pitch off the fairway. You come up with a strategy, then you hit the shot in front of you. Well, that's a good analogy for today. The people out there, they need to block out all this stuff, really focus, hit the shot in front of you. And again, I have a strategy for the people I coach called the 6-question coaching process. That is, have a regular dialogue with the people you lead, focus on 6 issues. Number 1, where are we going?
Right.
Where the leader says, here's where I think we're going. What do you think? Where are you going? Here's where I see you going. What do you think? Have a dialogue, doing well. It's very important to remember in times of crisis, don't forget the positives. Here's what I think you're doing well. And then what are you proud of? What do you think you're doing well? Suggestions for the future. And I teach something called feed forward, not feedback. So don't spend a lot of time focused on the past, focus on what you can do. And then ask the person, if you were the coach for you, what ideas would you have? How can I help as a leader, and what ideas do you have for me? And I've taught this process to 7 major CEOs, Jim Morton, CEO of John Hancock, Life Insurance Company, Steve Sanger, CEO of General Mills, a lot of big CEOs. It always works. It always works because it gets people to focus on what's important. And then finally, one final thing, mutual responsibility. As a leader, let people know something. Say, number 1, this may all change next week. This may all change next week. If you ever feel confused, lack of clarity, too much ambiguity, I want you to take responsibility, talk to me. Because if I do my job in terms of laying out the basics and you do your job of communicating with me, there's no reason we should have any problem with any of this alignment. And again, clear with people, this may all change, but at any second in time, just like the golfer, they need to clear their minds, focus, hit the shot, realize, hey, everything may change next week.
Right.
But at any second, they need that clarity on what's important.
Yeah, that's really good stuff. And it sounds to me like you have been doing this for so long that principles that you've taught and that you've learned yourself, you know, I see your UCLA shirt there. I think you got your Ph.D. from there.
I did.
In what?
I was in the School of Management. Yeah, I am the only Ph.D. graduate who's been the alumni of the year.
Ah, that's great.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah.
There should be more of those. You shouldn't be
there. Well, you know, that's it. I'm the alumni of the year there. So yeah, I went to UCLA. I had a great time there. Now, to be perfectly fair, I'm not sure I could get into UCLA today. I mean, I think they had 120,000 applicants for the freshman class last year. So,
yeah.
You know, I graduated when it was easier.
Yeah, well, but you still made the you know, #1 leadership thinker in the world, you know, list. You were ranked #1. Your books have been ranked as some of the top lead. What was the one of the books was ranked as the top leadership book or one of the top leadership books?
I've done 2. Yeah, Amazon did a survey, the top 100 leadership and success books ever written. And I actually had 2 books on the list. One of them's called What Got You Here Won't Get You There, and the other is Triggers. And I'm the only living author that has 2 books on the list.
That's great.
Yeah.
And tell us a little bit about, those are 2 great titles. What Got You Here Won't Get You There. And it's funny because I was just literally talking about what you've been, you know, learning, but what you've also been preaching, what you've been talking about for many years in the past, you probably still use today. And you find that there's new opportunities to use these things that you teach and believe in. But going to the title of your book, What Got You Here Won't Get You There, there's a little bit of a contradiction there. So you must be still teaching and believing in a lot of stuff you've known for many years.
Oh, yeah.
How does this book title differentiate from that?
Well, people love this title for speeches, and because so many companies right now have been very successful. And they've got a great track record.
Have been.
Key, though, is what got you here is not going to get you there for the future.
Right.
So they want to be proud of the tradition where they've been, yet at the same time look in the mirror and say, this is not going to get it moving forward. We got to be different out there. And so we all, as leaders, fall into a problem called the superstition trap. It sounds like this. I I did this, I was successful, therefore if I keep doing this, I will continue to be successful. No, you did this, you were successful, and that's great. And if you keep doing this, you may totally fail in the future because the world changed. The world just changed. And you can't assume that, again, what got me here to success yesterday is going to get me there to success tomorrow. So that's what the book is about.
So it's not necessarily about what got you here as a leader, as the way you think about yourself, as the way you approach problems and problem solving and communicating with people. It's more about some of the tools that you used or the actions that you used in your company, the way your company does business needs to change.
Well, it's actually both.
Really?
Because in my work, I coach executives for a living.
Right.
So I'm more famous for being a coach than anything. And so, if you heard the term executive coach, I'm the most famous executive coach. So I've coached the CEO of Ford and Pfizer and Glaxo and the World Bank, the Mayo Clinic and Walmart and the Red Cross and on and on and on. And what I love about coaching is that's where I learn everything. So most of the stuff I speak about, I didn't study in school. I mean, I like school, but I don't remember any of that stuff. All the stuff I speak about, I learned from coaching real CEOs in the real world.
Right.
And so that's where I've learned everything. And this what got you here also applies to people. Because as a leader, we fall into this trap. I behave this way, I am successful, therefore I must be successful because I behave this way. No, you behave this way, you are successful because you did many things right. And in spite of doing some things that are incredibly stupid. And I've never met anyone so wonderful they had nothing on the stupid list.
Right.
So, and the higher up you go, the harder it is because you don't get feedback. Everybody laughs at your jokes. And one of the guys, I do programs in my house for retiring CEOs. These things are hilarious. So at one program, one of the guys says there is a big CEO of a huge company. And he said, I had this little joke I told. And everyone laughed at my joke. It was a clean joke, didn't offend anyone, and they loved it. And I tell a joke. And then he said, I retired, and I told my little joke. He said, no one laughed. Then he said, well, they must be grumpy. Told my joke again. Next group, nobody laughs. Finally, his wife said, you idiot. Did you really think that stupid joke was funny?
Yeah.
Well, when he was the CEO, it was real funny, right? When he's not the CEO, it's not so funny anymore.
That's great. But so tell me this. There's got to be some principles, and it's not just change is inevitable. You've got to rethink everything and you've got to relook. There's got to be some things that for many years you've known to be the principles for success or the principles for being the best CEO or the best leader you can be. So what are those principles?
Well, let me tell you what I do in coaching people. Let's imagine you were the person I coach. So I either coach the CEO or the could-be CEO.
I'm a CEO. That's perfect.
Yeah, pretend you're the CEO. That's good. Well, I'm coaching you. Then when I coach the CEO, I would involve the board of directors. I would coach the CEO and I would say they get feedback that's confidential. So they don't know who said what. Right. My average client has 18 key stakeholders they're getting feedback from. Then I write these reports about here's what you're doing well, here's what you need to do better. Then we go over it. And you say, I feel good about this, Phil, want to get better at that. Then bring in the board. So the board of directors says, yeah, we agree. This guy's doing great over here, needs to get better at that. In my coaching, I have a very unique billing system. I don't get paid if my clients don't get better. So I work with them for a year and a half. They get better, I get paid. They don't get better, it's free. Now, there's a great way to test if someone believes what they're saying. You can ask a person one question and instantly determine their level of belief. I've never seen the question fail. What is it? Do you want to bet on it? Do you want to bet on it? They say, I believe it, but I don't want to bet. They don't believe it. They don't believe it. They say, here's the money. They believe it. I bet on it every time. Well, when you get paid for results, you get real practical real fast because theory doesn't help me. No results, no pay.
I love that. So what would you say would be some of the commonalities with some of the most successful people I'm sure you've been in the room with some of these CEOs. You're like, this guy or this gal, how did they get this job? They're not very bright. And then there's got to be the people where you're in the room, you're like, I can tell this is great.
Oh, yeah.
So what are some of those, things that are similar?
I can mention the names of the people I work with, like my book Triggers. If you look at the book, 27 major CEOs endorsed the book. So it's hardly a secret who I work with. Okay. Well, let me give you a couple of the best. One of them, her name is Frances Hesselbein. Peter Drucker said she was the greatest leader that he ever met in his life. Won the Presidential Medal of Freedom, was CEO of the Girl Scouts for 14 years. And another one is Alan Mulally. Alan was the CEO of Ford, probably the best CEO in the century. Stock went from $1 to $18 when he was the CEO. And even more impressive, he's in a union company. He got a 95% approval rating from UAW employees as a CEO. Think about that one. That does not happen.
Right.
That was mind-blowing. And he's an amazing, amazing guy. Well, what are the characteristics of the great people I coach? I'm not an expert on everything, but the ones that get better, let me tell you why they get better. One, they have courage. Because it takes courage to do this stuff I teach. You got to look in the mirror. Anybody that's read my book and tells me that stuff is easy, you've never done it before. It's hard. It is not easy at all. Anybody will tell you this stuff is hard. If you read my book, What Got You Here Won't Get You There, you read funny story after funny story. You think, oh, these people must be idiots. No, they all have IQs of 150 and they're CEOs of multi-billion-dollar companies. They're not idiots. They'll all tell you, though, stuff is easy to understand. It's very hard to do. So what happens is they all get the feedback. They have the courage to look in the mirror. They have to have the humility to admit they can improve. Because you know what I've learned as a coach? I cannot help perfect people get better. Somebody's perfect. Hey, they don't need me, right? They're perfect.
And you probably can't help insecure people who can't take any constructive criticism or negative.
I'm better at that, right? And then they have to have discipline, because it takes a lot of discipline to do the stuff I teach. Of courage, humility, and discipline.
So give me an example of one of those three areas that you kind of always go to. Like, let's say the discipline, which kind of interests me more than the others. Is there something within?
I'll take my friend Alan.
Okay.
He's a great case study. Of all the people I coached, he improved the most when he was at Boeing before he went to Ford. And I spent the least amount of time with him. So I said, Alan, Alan, of all the people I've coached, you improved the most. You were great to start with, by the way. And I spent the least amount of time. I made a chart. Time spent with a coach, Marshall Goldsmith, in one dimension, and improvement. So there seemed to be a negative correlation between spending time with me and getting better. I thought, well, that's bothering, it's troublesome. So I said, Alan, the way this chart looks, had you never met me, you'd really be good. So I said, what should I learn about coaching from you? So he said to me, he taught me a great lesson that changed my life. He said, look, your biggest challenge as a coach is called customer selection. You pick the right customer, this coaching process is always going to work. You pick the wrong customer, it's never going to work. He said, two, don't make coaching about your ego and how smart you think you are. Make it about the great people you work with and how proud you are of them. And he said, hey, as a CEO of Ford, my job wasn't that different. I don't build the cars. I don't sell the cars. I can have great people. And every day I tell myself, leadership's not about me, it's about them. Well, why do I always get ranked #1 coach in the world? Nobody's watched me coach anybody. Nobody knows I'm a good coach. I get ranked #1 coach because I got great clients. I got fantastic clients who'll do the work. And by the way, I'm often asked, how do I motivate people that don't care? And the answer is, I don't. I just work with people who do care.
Right.
Yeah, if they don't care, let it go.
So what did he do as far as his discipline goes was there something that?
Yeah, let me describe it. Yeah. Okay, number one, he said, look, I described my coaching process. So you got to get this feedback. Then you pick what you want to improve, and the board of directors agrees, and the CEO agrees, because he was head of the aircraft division back then. And then you follow up on a regular basis. You talk to people. You ask them for their ongoing ideas. You measure. You follow up. You measure, and then you get better. So he laughs. He said to me, Marshall, I built the Boeing 777 airplane. I said, building an airplane is really complicated. He said, I think I can carry this ball. So, he's an engineer, great project manager. So, after 3 months, it's obvious I'm going to get paid. So I say to Alan, I said, look, it's kind of embarrassing. I've done absolutely nothing here, and you're paying me a lot of money here, and you're going to get better, and I'm going to get paid, but maybe we should raise the bar. He said, why don't we have everybody get better? So he involved his whole team, and they all tried to improve relationships across the company. Everybody picked things to improve. They followed up every week. Every week they followed up, and then we measured how much improvement. I was hired to coach him. 200 people got better.
So it's about following up. It sounds like you're saying following up and actually doing the work.
Oh, yeah.
Pretty
I
simple.
wrote an article called Leadership is a Contact Sport. And these are people that went to the same program, taught by the same person, me, got feedback on the same process at the same time. Then we actually measured, did they get better? And the
Right.
people that did all this follow-up, huge improvement. And shockingly, the people that did nothing didn't get better.
Right. And
They just,
what's the measurement of getting better? Like, how can you tell if somebody got better? Their margins get better, or their
no. I measure behavioral change. So everybody would pick the behaviors they wanted to improve. They picked the key stakeholders. And overall, do the most important people think you've become a more effective leader? Yes or no? And it's all based not on your opinion, but their opinion.
So that's amazing. That's awesome. So tell me about triggers. That's an interesting title. What is that all about?
Well, as we journey through life, we all make these plans, all these grandiose ideas, but by February, the gym is empty, the New Year's resolution gone. What happens? Well, as we journey through life, we're bombarded by triggers. A trigger is any stimulus may impact our behavior. It could be a sight, a sound, a person. And these triggers sometimes push us toward becoming the person we want to become, but mostly they push us away from becoming that person. So what I talk about in the book Triggers is how do you learn to understand what are the triggers that impact your life? And how do you use clarity and structure to help you get through life so you're more in control of the world and the world is less in control of you? So they're kind of two schools of thought. One school of thought is, I control the world, and that's to a degree true. And the other school of thought is the world controls me. Well, that's true too. And my theory is, yeah, to a degree, you do control the world, and to a degree, it does control you. The idea of the book is to give you a little more of the you control the world and a little bit less of the world is controlling you. And part of it is just understanding the importance of structure. And I also talk about how we overestimate willpower. Willpower. I can do it. I ask people, how many of you got stuff you've been wanting to improve for 20 years, Like I'll say, Joe, you need to be a better listener. Yeah. How many years you been need to be a better listener? 30 years. I say, raise your right hand and repeat after me. My name is Joe. I need to be a better listener. I haven't fixed this by myself in 30 years. Who am I kidding? I'm not going to fix it by myself next week. I need help. And it's okay.
Yeah.
Once we get over that silly macho, look, if you could do it on your own and you haven't done it for 30 years, it would have been done by now. It's okay. We all need help. See, one thing I'm proud of in my book, Triggers, is I mentioned 27 major CEOs endorsed the book. Why am I proud of that? 30 years ago, no CEO would admit to having a coach.
Wow. Yeah.
They'd have been ashamed,
Oh, yeah.
embarrassed, right? They wouldn't admit to having a coach.
Right.
Well, this is like, hey, I'm president of the World Bank. I need help. I'm CEO of the year in the United States. I need help. I'm number 2 CEO of the year in the United States. I need help. I won the Presidential Medal of Freedom. I need help. Well, these are big hitters, right?
Yeah.
Guess what? They all need help. Well, we all need help. One of the greatest dancers in history is Twyla Tharp, great choreographer. And she's had the same personal trainer for 27 years. Same routine, same trainer, 27 years. Why? Because she can't do it on her own.
Yeah.
She's got enough sense to, why does she look so good at 75 years old? Because she knows, I can't do this by myself.
Right.
The trainer doesn't kick my butt every day. I'm not going to do this stuff. It's too painful.
Yeah. And I was just watching the Frank Sinatra amazing documentary on Netflix. And in the very beginning of his career, he was already singing. He was already in a band. But he said to somebody, one day after they said to him, you should get a lesson. He didn't get offended. He'd never taken a vocal lesson. He said, okay, who is it? And then they said, it's this guy. You should go see him. He met the guy. He met with the guy, and the guy, kind of gave him a hard time. And then he started going to see him. He said he was more excited to go see him than to perform or do anything else.
Yeah.
Because he was so excited to get better and to learn these things. And his fans and the people listening on the radio could tell, they could see him getting better over all these years. And then later he was cast in a movie, and it was kind of his third movie. The first 2 were flops. And I can't remember who the dancer was that he was, the singer dancer that he was with as a co-star in the movie. But that guy said, look, this is going to be really hard. You're going to have to learn how to dance. This is going to be
Right.
very difficult. And he said, okay, when do we start? And he was excited. He was ready for it. He became one of the greatest of all time at what he
Yep.
did, because he was willing to take the feedback, do the work, improve, admit he needed help, not be, insecure about it. So it sounds like that's like a common theme of what you're saying as well.
Totally common theme.
Yeah.
And everyone I coach has to do the work. Now, if they don't want to do the work, I don't judge them. I just don't work with them. I'm not going to get paid anyway, so why am I wasting my time?
What's one thing, and I'm sorry to keep prying on your actual, practice, but what's one thing you make sure everybody does, which is doing the work? What's one thing that kind of everybody has to do?
Apologize.
Apologize to
everyone around them. Hey, we all make mistakes. It's okay. You just step up and you say, I'm sorry I didn't do this. I'm sorry I haven't listened as well as I could have. I'm sorry I've been disrespectful.
Even if there's not something that's definitely needs to be apologized for, understanding what you could have done better and then finding that out.
Well, I mean, the other thing is, how many of us do not have something we need to apologize for?
Well, right. But I'm saying with everybody around you, you kind of have to kind of pick and see what it is with that person that you could have done better.
No, they just pick one thing for in general, and usually it's all the same anyway. When I interview people around my clients, I average 18 people, but 80% of the time it's all the same.
And what's the most common thing that's the same?
Ego. See, it's very hard because everyone I coach has taken test after test after test in life, thousands of tests. And they've had to do one thing thousands of times, prove how smart they are. They've had to prove how smart they are over and over and over and over again. It is incredibly difficult to stop.
Mm-hmm.
We are so geared to do this. It's incredibly difficult not to win. It's incredibly difficult not to prove how smart we are, not to prove we're right. And the higher up you go, you've got to stop doing that. At the bottom, that's okay. But you're a CEO. You can't prove you're smarter than everyone around you. That's very, very bad. So in my book, I talk about the problem of winning too much. I'll give you two I talk about. One is winning too much. Now, you want to go to dinner at restaurant X. Your husband, wife, or partner wants to go to dinner at restaurant Y. You have a heated argument. You go to restaurant Y and the food tastes awful and the service is terrible. Option A, you could critique the food, point out our partner was wrong. This mistake could have been avoided if you'd listened to me. Option B, shut up, eat the stupid food, try to enjoy it and have a nice night. What would I do? What should I do? Almost everyone I work with, what I do, critique the food. What should I do? Shut up. It's hard not to win, no matter how stupid it is. Another one is called adding too much value. I'm young, smart, enthusiastic, and you're my boss. I come to you with an idea. You think it's a great idea. Rather than just saying great idea, we say, well, that's a nice idea. Why don't you add this to it?
Right.
The quality of the idea may go up 5%. My commitment to execute the idea just went down 50%. It's no longer my idea, boss. Now it's your idea.
Yeah.
Very hard for smart, successful people not to constantly add value, especially scientists, engineers, people like that. One of my coaching clients was J.P. Garnier. He was CEO of GlaxoSmithKline. So I said, what'd you learn about leadership as a CEO of this big company? He said, I've learned a hard lesson. He said, my suggestions become orders. He said, if they're smart, they're orders. If they're stupid, they're orders. If I want them to be orders, they're orders. If I don't want them to be orders, they're orders anyway. My suggestions become orders. Every time you get promoted, more and more of your suggestions, they become orders. For 9 years, I trained admirals in the U.S. Navy. What's the first thing I teach to new admirals every class? When you get that star, your suggestions become orders. Admirals don't make suggestions. Admiral makes a suggestion. What's everybody? Sir, yes, sir.
Yeah.
Suggestion is an order. So I asked JP, what'd you learn from me as I was your coach that helps you the most? He said, you taught me one lesson, helped me be a better CEO and have a happier life. I said, what was it? He said, before I speak, breathe. And ask myself one question, is it worth it?
Is it worth it?
Is it worth it? He said half the time he'd say, am I right? I don't know, maybe. Is it worth it? No. Let it go.
And that's great to do at home with your kids and your wife and your spouse and your siblings, whoever.
Even better.
Absolutely.
Even better.
Amazing. Wow, this is so good. Okay, we got to do another 3 hours here because no, I'm just kidding. But this is so fun. And there's another book title that you had that I love, which is Earned Life. And you had said that this was coming out when?
Well, it's going to be out. It'll be out not this year. It'll be out next year because they postponed it because of all this crisis stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the content is great.
You said you were really excited about it. So let's.
I am. Let me give you one thing from the book.
Okay.
The book is built on basic Buddhist philosophy. Buddhist philosophy is every time I take a deep breath, it's a new me. So you take a deep breath, you think, new me. Everything that happened before this second in your life was done by an infinite set of people. Those are called the previous Chris, the previous yous. Now, take a breath. Think of all those previous yous. Think of all the gifts they've given to you that's here right now. Think of all the nice things they've done. If anybody did that many nice things, what should you say to those nice people? Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, did they make some mistakes? Yeah, let go. Yeah, learn how to forgive yourself and don't focus on the past. So the good news is, if you understand this philosophy, it's really helps people make peace with what is. It's a new you. Now, the negative of this is, makes it hard. The Chris I'm talking to, that guy hasn't earned one thing. Everything that you have was given to you by the previous versions of you. See, in many ways, the previous versions of you, the younger version of you, they're your parents. They created who you are right now. The older versions of you are your children. And one of my coaching clients is Dr. Jim Kim. He was president of the World Bank, president of Dartmouth College, and president of Partners in Health. He saved he saved 20 million lives. Amazing man. If anybody in life you think should get a pass, he should get one, right? I told him his story I said, Dr. Jim, the previous versions of you, the younger you, it's kind of your parents. And the older version of you, in many ways, that's your children. You know what he said? I hope I make mommy and daddy proud. Very touching. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That sounds like a great book.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm very positive.
So what would you say then to the young entrepreneur or the kind of up and coming entrepreneur or people who want to be leaders in their companies? Maybe they're just managers, maybe they're just supervisors. What would you say to them? And I know we touched on this in the beginning, leading in a time of crisis, but what would you say to them is important for them to keep in mind as we go through kind of the second half, or hopefully towards the end of this pandemic situation, a mindset to really have?
A couple of points. I had the privilege before he died of spending 50 days with Peter Drucker, the world's greatest authority on management. I was on his advisory board for 10 years. I mean, I got ranked #1 leadership thinker in the world. My intellect compared to him, 10-year-old boy. He was so smart. He taught me so many things. So this next advice I got from him, and it's really good for younger people who are earlier in their careers. A couple of points. Point number one, our mission in life is to make a positive difference, not to prove that we're smart and not to prove we're right. We get so lost in proving how smart we are, how right we are, we forget, I'm not here on earth to prove I'm smart. I'm not here on earth to prove how right I am. I'm here to make a positive difference. If I don't make a positive difference, it really doesn't matter how smart I am, and it doesn't matter how right I am. Learning point number 2 from Peter Drucker, every decision in life is made by the person who has the power to make the decision. Make peace with that. Not the smartest person, the best person, a fair person, or a logical person. Decisions are made based on one and only one variable. Whoever has the power to make the decision is going to make the decision. If I need to influence you, and you have the power to make the decision, and I need to influence you to make a positive difference in the world, there's one word to describe you, customer. There's one word to describe me, salesperson. You don't have to buy. I have to sell. You don't have to buy. I have to sell. And teaching young leaders that, young people, that's really important because they get lost in content. They get lost in being right. They get lost in proving things. They forget, we're not here for that. If I need to influence you to make the decision, you're the customer. I got to learn how to sell. And you don't have to buy. It's not your problem, it's my problem. And just teaching that, you'd be amazed how much of my life has been spent repeating this lesson over and over. The people that have MBAs from Harvard, you think they'd figure it out. I'm working with one guy, his company is bought by a private equity firm, right? They take this 41-year-old kid and they make him the CEO, right? 41. It's $1 billion company, which by this standard, not that much, but still, they make him CEO. You know what he says about the private equity company? He goes, they can't tell me what to do. No, can't tell me what to do. I'm the CEO. Can't tell me what to do. Of course, the people in New York calculate how much it costs to get rid of this clown, right? It costs a couple of $1 million to get rid of him, and they don't even care about the $2 million. It's just a pain in the butt. So they have me coach him. I'll say his name is Joe. I say, Joe, I told him this lecture about, the customer and the decision maker and all that. And I said, Joe, I'm going to help you. You're the CEO. That's good. Oh, CEO, very good. Important job. CEO. You see, they're the owner. Better. CEO, good. Owner, better. And he said, they can't tell. Oh, see, yes, you see, they can tell you what to do, you fool, because it's their money. Now you see, they have hired me to help you. Now I am going to tell you exactly what to do. And if you do exactly what I say, I may save your sorry butt. If you don't, I have to go back to New York and tell mommy and daddy, I cannot help you. What's it going to be?
Wow.
Well, that was 12 years ago. Fantastic story. Salutes the flag. He calmed down. He stayed with the company. They had a great relationship. He just got his ego. That term CEO sometimes leads to little ego problems.
Yeah.
Sometimes they forget that, like another one, he goes to the board of directors. They vote 10-0 and tell him they don't like this candidate for a job. 10-0, all 10. We hate him. He tries to prove they're wrong. And he tells them they're all confused. So they meet after he leaves. They meet. And they called me in. I had to go talk to him. I said, the board of directors asked me to talk to you. And they want me to point out, you see, that they don't work for you. You're a little confused. You see, you work for them. Now, they don't own the company. They are the elected representatives of ownership of the company. You see, they were very clear. You work for them. They don't work for you. Now, they voted 10-0. And you told all 10, they were all 10 confused. All 10 of these smart people, everybody confused except you. Now, they talked after you left, and they came to a conclusion. They determined, no, you're confused. Now they've hired me to help alleviate this confusion.
That's funny.
I have to do this over and over and over again. And then after all, oh yeah, explain that. Here's how it works. Oh yeah, right. I work with one woman. She owns the company. She owns all the stock, right? It's her money.
Yeah.
And this CEO tells her she's an idiot. It's her money.
Yeah.
She can kind of invest it how she wants to.
Right.
It's her money. You didn't earn the money. She did.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so fun to do.
Well, I mean, it's like they haven't looked at the history of their job or their title before, because even Steve Jobs was, ousted of his own company.
That's right.
By his own board.
That's right.
And it continues to happen over and over and over, right?
That's
some of them you just can't save because they're not willing to look in the mirror.
Well, that's it. I mean, I haven't always been paid. I've failed before. I've not been paid. And what was the major problem? Me, my own ego. See, I thought I was save people. No, I learned that lesson the hard way. Yeah, don't get paid for a year and a half. Then you learn, wait a minute, who's the idiot here?
Right.
I'm the idiot. No, they're not the idiot. I'm the idiot. And you know what I learned? Like my friend Alan told me, I can't make what people change that don't want to change. So in my classes, I ask people this question. Any of you ever tried to change a husband, wife, or partner with no interest in changing? You ever tried that before? How's it working for you? Any of you ever tried to change mommy and daddy and they didn't want to change? You're changing your parents. Oh, yeah. One woman raised her hand. I said, are you trying to change mommy or daddy? She said, daddy. So I asked her, I said, what's daddy's problem? She said, he does not have a healthy lifestyle. So I asked her, how old is daddy? She said, 94. Leave the old boy alone. Yeah. You want to smoke a cigarette? Smoke too. He's 94 years old. Give it a rest, right? Well, we get into this savior complex where I have to change everybody and save everybody. Not so much.
Oh man, these are all such great lessons. Thank you so much, Marshall. This has been so fun. You are the master. I hope we can do this, regularly, because there's so much to gain. I'm going to have to go back and rewind this and listen to it, watch it again, because
Thank you.
So much good stuff in there. Thank you so much, Marshall. Thank you for coming on my show. I really appreciate you for doing that. You're a very busy man who, I'm sure you're flying a little bit less. I'm sure those 12 million miles that you've accumulated.
Not so many miles, right?
This year will be one of your worst years ever for that.
Not for flying. No flying for me.
No flying. So
okay.
Stay safe, stay well. Thank you so much, Marshall, and I will talk to you soon, buddy.
Thank you so much.
Take care.